Hello, welcome to Miss Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peepers. Let's talk about time travel. Today we're discussing Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This book follows Dana, a Black woman living in the 1970s who finds herself suddenly transported back to the antebellum South. While she's there, she learns that she is descended from a slave owner and one of his slaves, and that she must ensure his safety so that she can ensure her own birth. This is complicated by the fact that she finds herself moving back and forth in time completely outside of her own control. And these journeys start to involve her boyfriend as well, who happens to be white. Why was this book banned? Well, there's violence in it and also slavery, because a good portion of the book is set in the antebellum South. And while it's not stated explicitly, I can't help but think that part of the reason it's banned is because the author herself was a Black woman. And the censors are incredibly uncomfortable with discussions about race, particularly those in which white people are not the heroes, as in stories about slavery. There's a theme across these banned books, this month's as well as the ones that I talked about last year in October. They are often written by or written about marginalized communities. People who are not white, people who are not straight, people who are not Christian. And that's not an accident. The bias may not always be conscious, but it's definitely there. Why should you read this book? Well, the first thing I'll say is if you heard the bit about the time travel and you're thinking, I don't like science fiction. I hear you. Can you trust me? Because yes, technically speaking, this book is science fiction, but it is the science fiction equivalent of magical realism, in that the science fiction is kind of there in the background, but it doesn't play a major part. There's no technobabble like you might get on Star Trek or Doctor Who. And ultimately, this story is so very human, which, to be fair, many science fiction stories are. But this isn't about the sci-fi. This isn't even really about the time travel per se. The time travel is just a mechanism to move this woman between two completely different centuries and to look at slavery through a modern person's eyes. And that is so incredibly powerful. When I read this book last year, I did make a video, so I will link to that here as well so you can see my full thoughts on this book. I adored it. The book is beautifully written. It is incredibly empathetic, and the characters are real people. They're not archetypes. So even this slave owner ancestor of Dana's, when she first meets him, he is a small child, and she watches him grow up as she moves back in time at different parts of his life. And she has a certain amount of influence over him because he sees her as a protector from a very young age. But he's also influenced by the systems around him, by the society around him, by the expectations passed down to him from his father. And I don't want to say that Rufus is completely a victim. I don't want to say that he is entirely innocent and that he just fell into slave ownership and didn't know what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He made immoral decisions. So please don't think that that's what I'm saying. And that's not what Butler is saying either. But he is a complex person. One thing that I really appreciate in books, in movies, and TV series is a well-rounded antagonist, a well-rounded villain, because humans are not either fully good or fully evil. All of us have the capacity for both good and evil, and all of us are influenced not just by the way that we think about things, but also by the way that our society has formed around us. The more you read, the more empathetic you will become, because you have access to different stories written by different people about different kinds of people. You see those experiences, and gradually, the more you read, the more empathetic you become, the more you understand the world around you, which is one thing the censors don't really like. And I know that I talk about the censors as if they're one organized group. They're not. I know they're not. There are people who read this book and say, this is too much for a teenager to handle. This is too much for a young person to handle. And I understand where they're coming from, even though I disagree. It is a lot. I found this book distressing in so many ways. I found it disturbing. I think if you are at all empathetic, you will find it distressing, disturbing. But that doesn't mean you can't handle it and understand that these events that Butler describes, these are things that really happen to people. These people are fictional, but the actions happened. And many of these things, these violent acts, are committed today in different parts of the world against different sorts of people. And knowing that there are humans on both sides of this story is really important. If we think of plantation owners, of slave owners as purely evil, then we don't recognize that they are human. We don't recognize that people we know, or even that we ourselves, we could find ourselves committing evil acts under the right circumstances. And being aware of that helps you stave those things off. It helps you make better decisions. It helps you live according to your own values. This is a book that makes you think. It's a book that makes you reflect, just like all of Octavia E. Butler's books. So let me know, have you read Kindred? Have you read anything else by Octavia E. Butler? What do you think of her writing? What do you think of this writing? And either way, whatever you do, please keep reading, and I will see you in the next one.